Hey, Bills fans, welcome into another episode of Triple Coverage. I am Lance Nelson, the president of Built in Buffalo. To my right is Benjamin Shoop, and to my left is Scott Kasson. This week, we're going to get into some rule changes and the Josh Allen era for the Buffalo Bills. This will be a pre-recorded episode, so please feel free to comment, but know that we won't be able to respond live because we are doing this pre-recorded. Scott and Ben, how are we doing this week? It's going into 4th of July weekend here as we record on Tuesday. Training camp's coming up in about 3 weeks from now, and then we're less than a month away from the Hall of Fame game. So things are not too far out, and happy summer. Officially the dog days here.
Yeah, appreciate everybody putting up with this being pre-recorded. Mostly my fault. I'm going to be up at the lake this weekend, and we don't have internet. We're living, it's like Little House on the Prairie up there. Just last year we got cell service, but still no internet. So doing great. Hope everybody had a happy 4th. And 4th of July to me is kind of that we're almost to football season holiday. Obviously don't want to wish away the summer, but like you said, we're getting closer and closer every day. It's starting to get close to training camp. Soon we're going to have that fall crisp in the air, and we're going to have some Bills football on Sundays.
Yeah, that dead period is getting towards the end there. Of there's still some stuff going on in the NFL, but really not much at all. But yeah, now you're starting to get to that point where you're starting to itch at it, right? You're starting to itch to see these guys on the field, see what these guys look like in the new uniforms, and just kind of see what it's like around the league with each team and what they're feeling, what the rookies look like. So yeah, it's getting towards that time. Still a little bit away, but yeah, it should be a good week this week with the 4th of July and good nice weekend for the holiday. Hopefully the weather stays nice. I believe it should, but yeah, it's going to be a good week. And yeah, unfortunately, do have to do a little bit of pre-recorded episode, but every show's got to do it here and there, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's going to be fantasy draft season around. Some people have already started. I just finished up a dynasty draft, 33 rounds with individual defensive players, best ball with super flex. So it was a pretty incredible league, and a lot of cool people in there. So yeah, fantasy football draft season and getting ready, obviously, to roll into summer. So let's get into this show and what we're going to be talking about here. The first part of it is going to be the new rules, and we're going to turn it over to Scott first.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the new rules. We're going to go into more of the details as the show goes on, but obviously the two big ones, banning the hip drop tackles and a new kickoff rule. If you're not familiar with what we're talking about, just wait 5 minutes. We're going to go into all the details, but wanted to see what everybody thinks. Do we think this is good for football? Do we think it's going to make the game safer, which is kind of, the main thing that the league's been trying to go with the rule changes recently? Obviously the defenseless receiver hits, protecting the quarterback in the pocket. They're trying to make the game, which is very violent, a little bit more safer. So what does everybody think? Do we think that it's going to, one, help the game, maybe even make kickoffs more exciting, and two, make it safer for everybody who plays? So just want to see what everybody thinks about the new rules and how much they might change up the game this year. Yeah,
I'm excited to see the rule changes implemented and how it does affect. And one of the things that may be most exciting is how much it affects scoring. So let's go into the first one, and then we'll get to that point.
Yeah, so I'm going to kind of lead the rule change segment. The first one we'll talk about is banning of the hip drop tackle. For folks who maybe aren't sure what that is, it's kind of happens a lot when like a smaller player tries to tackle like a big tight end. The example that they showed a lot around the league this past year was Mark Andrews getting hurt against the Bengals. A corner like grabs onto a tight end, and then instead of kind of like wrestling to the ground or driving him through, just like basically sits on the ground, drops their hips, sits on the ground, and then his momentum of falling down pulls the runner down. It's really dangerous because a lot of times when that happens, players' legs get tangled up under the defender who is falling, led to a lot of broken ankles, some torn up knees, sprained ankles at a minimum. It may be kind of tough to officiate because, some of these smaller guys just do what they have to do to get guys on the ground. One thing to look out for, and I heard this on a podcast and it stuck out to me, maybe big season for tight ends coming up. If smaller guys can't tackle them, guys like Dalton Kincaid, guys like Travis Kelce, maybe getting a lot more yak yards because they're able to run through some more arm tackles. They don't have to deal with this. But what do you guys think? Anything to add? And then how do you think it's going to change up the way teams defend against maybe some of the bigger players out there?
I don't think we need any more yakking from Travis Kelce. Oh, wait, different thing. I think offense is as much as safety might be the goal in this NFL rule change rollout here. I think that it's offense. It's going to be scoring. So I think part of it is I agree with the safety side of it, and that's fine. But it's only going to make teams more capable of scoring more points, and that's ultimately something the league's interested in as well. So I do like protecting guys' legs and having guys healthy for as long as we can get them. Let the great players be great, but I think it's just going to motivate and cause maybe some guys to change their bodies and body types at different positions, and we'll see how people grow into that. People who maybe were more of a mold of a linebacker or maybe a mold of some other position, maybe somebody who would typically be a running back on offense can now transition to maybe a safety on defense and be able to be more successful with his athleticism and that body type. So we'll see how that changes the type of players and who gets put in what position on a defense. And I know Sean McDermott's probably going to be towards the forefront of implementing a lot of those things. So it'll be fun to watch in Buffalo as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of like all over the place when it comes to this rule, because obviously, you want players to be safe. You want the safety of the game to be up there as a priority for the NFL. You want guys to not have to miss, a whole season just because of one play. But at the same time, I'm also looking at it, a lot of defenders have come out and said, like, what else am I supposed to do then? At the end of the day, it is football. At the end of the day, these players know the risks of the injury risk of being able to go out there and play this physical game. So I'm a little bit all over the place when it comes to my thoughts on this rule. I get why the NFL did it. I mean, we all know the NFL loves scoring. We know that they love big plays. This will help with that, and it will also keep the superstars on the field. So you won't see Mark Andrews go down with an injury like this. You won't see, even guys like Josh Allen who are bigger. Some of these, without this rule, maybe some corners or safeties are trying to hip drop tackle him because he is a bigger guy. So, in hindsight, it is definitely better for, the safety of the league, the players, but the defense, even it kind of comes into question of, will this affect how the defense is and affect how the defense even is health-wise? Because how are they going to start going after tackles? Are they going to start now being in jeopardy of trying to tackle a certain way and then they get hurt? So I'm curious to see if there's any, repercussions towards the defense in that aspect as well. My guess would probably be no, just because you can't really. I mean, a tackle at the end of the day is a tackle. They should know at the end of the day how to tackle. But I will see. I'm interested to see just how it kind of goes about when it comes to defenders. I know a lot of them, though, like I said, have come out and spoken out about the rule. But at the end of the day, it's good, I think, for the NFL as a whole. It's good for the product. It's good for exciting plays and exciting football at the end of the day. So I'm a little all over the place with it. I get why they did it. But I mean, like I said, if they wouldn't have put the rule and I still would have been fine with it, I would have understood why they didn't put the rule in. But at the end of the day, player safety should be above everything when it comes to just the game of football in general.
Yeah, they definitely do make it tough on defenders these days. Now, you can't hit high, you can't hit low. If you're a little guy, like a cornerback trying to tackle like a Derrick Henry type, you can't just hold on for dear life and fall down anymore. So really emphasizes the form tackling that we were all taught, growing up playing youth football of, drive through the man and wrap up. So there's going to be a big emphasis on proper tackling form in the NFL after all of these rule changes, and gang tackling. You can't just, you got to follow the ball. You can't watch one guy try to bring down somebody. Everybody's going to have to join in and help, because otherwise I think there's going to be a lot more broken tackles and a lot more big plays. And this is one of those rules that, unless you're watching our show, which you should be, You might not even realize that it is a rule until the Bills maybe get called for it on a 3rd and long, and then it becomes a first down, which will be frustrating, but leads us into our next rule change that everyone will see from the very first play of the season, and that is the new kickoff rule. I'm excited about this one. If anybody's watched an XFL game over the past couple of years, or UFL, whatever they're calling it these days, it's going to look very similar to that. And the idea is that kickoff returns were at a rate of 22% last season. That means that basically 2 out of 10 kicks were actually getting returned. Everybody knows who goes to a football game. The most exciting play in football is a kickoff return for a touchdown, and we're not getting those. We're not getting any returns. So this, in theory, should encourage the team. Well, they have to. This, in theory, should make more returns, make the game more exciting, get teams better field positioning, and make it safer as well, like we're going to explain, less head-on collisions. So, Lance, if you want to pull up that graphic, I can kind of walk people through what that's going to look like. So, you see the football. That's where the kicker is going to be kicking off from the 35, and he has to get it in a landing zone, which goes from the goal line to the 20. The return team will have 2 players in the landing zone who can catch the ball and then return the kick. The kicker, if he doesn't make it to the landing zone, meaning it lands short at like the 25 or the 30, the return team gets the ball all the way up at the 40. So they have to get it in that landing zone. If they kick it out the back of the landing zone through the end zone, they get it at the 30. So, again, have to get in that landing zone. If they kick it and it lands in the landing zone but rolls through the end zone, it's like an old school touchback. They get it at the 20. Now, you may be wondering, why is the kicker the only person at the 35? So, gone are the days of the kickoff team getting a full-on running head start and running full speed into the return team. All 10 members of the kickoff team will be standing at the 40-yard line, and they cannot move until the ball is caught by the returner. And then all 9 guys on the return team, because obviously they have the 2 returners, are between the 30 and the 35, with 7 of them having to be at the 35, also can't move until it's caught. So then once the ball is caught by the returner, everybody can move. They're trying to tackle him. The return team's trying to, spring him for a big return. So every kick will be returned, which is going to be really exciting. And then the only real difference with there's going to be like an onside kick. You just have to let the other team know you're onside kicking. So no more surprise onside kicks, but you still can do a traditional onside kick. You just have to let the other team know. So what do you guys think? How do you think this is going to change the game? And are you excited about it like I am?
Yeah, I mean, this is one where, it's been talked about for a while, right? I mean, people always talk about how, the main guy that they always talk about when it comes to kickoff returns, obviously, is Devon Hester, and saying, well, there hasn't been really a Devon Hester in the last few years, a guy that has been so good at kick returns that you're scared because there aren't even, like you said, that many kick returns. So one, I think, having more returns will help the game. I also think the one thing that it will help is having the players closer together, and the offense and the return team and the kickoff team being closer together at the point of kickoff. It will also not just reduce injuries, it will also, I think, reduce penalties, right? That was the one thing. After every single kickoff, what was the number one thing everybody's looking for? They're saying, oh, I'm waiting for the flag to be thrown. Where is it going to happen? And a lot of times it would. And it was one of the most frustrating parts of the game where people were like, why even have the game have a kickoff? So I do think it will be good for the game. You've seen the XFL. A lot of people love it there with the kickoff rules there. So I'm excited to see it. I still just am curious of how it will look and if teams now might be paying returners more, because if they can have a good return man, that could change the outcome of an entire game. So yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see this one. I mean, returns, especially for me growing up, was Devon Hester, like I said, was one of my favorite players in the league. He opened a Super Bowl with a kickoff return for a touchdown. We obviously have seen a couple with Nyheim Hines 2 years ago. So we've seen it, but again, that's such a rarity where that's why it was so exciting when it did happen. Because you were like, one, they actually returned it, and 2, they did take it to the house, because half the time if they do return it, like we said, there's either a flag or it doesn't really go anywhere. So I think every part of this rule is amazing. I think every part of changing the kickoff needed to happen in order for this part of the game to become relevant, because like between a team scoring and the next team going on offense, that period, a lot of people wouldn't even pay attention because it was the extra point, and then and then a commercial, and then the kickoff. Nobody cares about the kickoff anymore because there weren't any, and then there was another commercial. So you have that time period where it's like nobody cared to even watch the game, and now you have actually an exciting play. I am interested to see how teams also defend it more, and to see if they maybe have more linebackers out there now compared to safeties, more safeties than defense or than linebackers. Who do you have out there compared to what you used to have out there on either side, on either the kicking team or the return team? So I'm just really interested to see how teams attack it, and especially how these players attack it. You've seen the players kind of even confused still about the rule, and I think there will be teams and players really confused about it until we start playing in the training camp and in the preseason. But I did have a question just real quick for you, Scott. Do you know, is college football going to this as well, or is it just the NFL?
I do not believe college football is going to this. I'm 99% sure college football will still be the same. Where they kick off from the 35, can fair catch it out to the 25, which brings me to a funny. So I was at the year that they changed the rule that you could fair catch a ball and it goes to the 25. I was at a week 1 college football game, Texas, Maryland, and the kick returner fair call at the opening kickoff, and I was like, what the hell is he doing? Like, they're going to get it at the 2. And then they brought it out the 25, and I was like, what? So I'm happy that we have a little bit more publicity around the new rules this year, so hopefully people aren't as confused as I was at that game.
Well, I do see. That's then I guess the next thing I'm wondering is if this does go with the NFL, will college football follow suit and make that change as well with this kickoff rule? But either way, this rule I'm absolutely loving. I know the hip drop tackle I was kind of all over the place on, but this one all in favor for. I think every fan should be in favor for it. Now, who knows? Maybe the Bills need to pay attention. We'll see more and see if they need to pay attention more to getting a return man if they don't have one on their roster that they like already.
Yeah, it's tough being a Bills fan to say that there wasn't any excitement on kickoffs, because we obviously had 2 kick returns for a touchdown in one game from, was it Damien Harris? Was it that did that? Or Naeem Hines, sorry. Yeah,
Harris had the one. No, not Damon Harris.
Hines, after Damar Hamlin's incident and stuff, first game back, I'm in the stadium, first game back after that happening. It's like, I don't even know if I want to go to this game or not, kind of thing. And you're in the stands, and that's the first play of the game. So I think we had, some good excitement around kickoff returns still, but they are obviously, that's one, they are fewer and far between, and this might help increase that, like you mentioned. Obviously, for me, when I was a kid, it was more Deion Sanders and stuff like that, and seeing different guys returning kicks. But I also was a big fan of Devon Hester. I was, probably a teenager then, and really into football at the time. So, I think that the returner and just the personnel, like you mentioned, the personnel, even down to the kickoff person, there may be teams that don't trot their kicker out to kick off. If they have a guy who's a better tackler that can kick the ball into the landing zone effectively, nothing to say we won't see that happen, and the place kicker may be more just suited for field goals. We'll see if teams implement it that all. I'm excited to see if that is the case, and overall the personnel changes that this rule creates. Are you able to get any bigger guys down there? Will you see any sort of like really athletic defensive linemen at all over there? And apologize, my neighbor's blowing off fireworks as we're doing this, so that's great. But so I think that's an interesting point. I'm going to be very excited to see how that plays out with personnel. And then speaking of personnel, we threw this up a little bit, but let's get in, Scott.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you guys, we talked about, where guys line up and who they put out there. Do we think that teams are going to put better players in the return game now? Because now some teams have like a backup running back or like a backup corner or what maybe. But like if I'm the Dolphins and you get essentially like a 20-yard head start where no one can touch you, I'm putting Tyreek Hill back there to return kicks because he can basically just run until someone touches him. And that's probably going to be like 20, 25 yards every time. So do you guys think this changes the value of the returner and maybe even changes like who they put out there? Like maybe they put out guys that they might not have in the past because they're worried about them getting hurt.
Yeah, I mean, I think, even when it comes to, we were talking the past few weeks about who makes the Bills roster, Daquan Hardy was a guy that got brought up a lot, and he has return experience. Is he a guy that now, if he shows that he can be a consistent returner and be a good returner for the Bills, do they say, well, no, we need him on this team now if they are even considering cutting him over somebody else? This might play a factor in people having jobs and people not having jobs in the NFL. Do they keep an extra guy in the practice squad just because, hey, if he can, if we're struggling with a returner, can he be that guy that can go back there and be our returner, depending on how this rule changes, just the average starting position in the NFL. So I hope it makes more value for the returners. Maybe Brandon Beane looks back and says, man, I wish we did have a Nyheim Hines still that could go back there and be our return man. But it's also the question of, is Nyheim Hines then going to be a different type of returner? Is he not going to be as good because of the rules? Is he going to be even better? So you're going to see, it's going to be interesting to see what type of player and who becomes the types of returners and the classic returners now in the NFL. Maybe more guys from the XFL will get a shot because they've already had more practice in this system and more practice in this kickoff format. So, I hope it adds more value to the return men. Like I said, you even had, guys like Cribbs back there. That was always great. Guys that were amazing returners that made the game exciting, especially for the young player, for the young generation. Kids growing up saying, wow, I love that player. Not because he can go up and challenge any corner or gets 20 sacks in a season, but because he's, a quieter player, but he's one of the most important parts of the team, because for 1 or 2 plays a game, 3 plays a game, they have to be worried about him. And, it's also going to be the question of, now you can't really kick it out of the back of the end zone and say, this guy's not going to return it, because then they get it farther out. So it's going to be a question of even how they attack the different return men of, well, some teams say, I don't care if they take that extra 10 yards to the 30. I still would rather not kick the ball to this guy, or whatever they try to do. So I'm excited to see how they do it. I'm excited to see that hopefully return men can kind of get their value back, and make this play exciting again, because, man, good returns, as we know, from Nyheim Hines, even on punt returns, we've had a couple last year. Even the Bills on the opposite end of kickoffs, we're letting up kickoff returns. I believe the Patriots opened the game up against us with a kickoff return for a touchdown. But again, we are such a rare fan base where we've seen these returns happen. Not a lot of teams have seen them. You've seen teams not even have a return against them or a return for them in years. So I hope that this puts a little bit more value back into the return men in this game.
Yeah, and you have to, based upon that photo we looked at in your explanation, though, you have to have 2 guys back, right? So that'll be a challenge too. Kickers are going to try to kick it directionally towards the least dangerous guy. Maybe you have to have 2 really dangerous return men there. So it may just increase that even more. I expect a guy like maybe Reggie Gilliam or someone, maybe even Justin Shorter could earn a role like that, being kind of a good blocker and stuff like that. So I don't think that it's necessarily going to be one guy changing it, because you can just kick away from him. It's going to need to be kind of like, you don't want to kick to both guys and things like that. So
yeah, I think that's all we have on the rule changes, unless you guys have anything else to add.
I got nothing else, but the only other thing was, is there any rule, I guess, that you guys maybe wish they added, wish they even talked about a little more? For me, I really wasn't anything that kind of stood out to me, and really that I thought they should add. But was there any rule that you thought of the past year or two that you were like, man, I wish they would address this more?
The only thing I've thought of, and This is the way we do it in my flag football league. For onside kicks, it being like a 4th and 10 or 4th and 15 or 4th and 20 play or something like that. Because onside kicks are recovered at such a low percentage, like it's almost not even worth doing them anymore. And they've talked about changing it to something like this. So I would like to see, like, if it's under 2 minutes and the team's down by like a score or less or 2 scores or less, let them do like a 4th and 10 play they have to get, or a 4th and 15 or something like that. I think that would be a lot more exciting and maybe would raise the level at which teams get them and make it so that like teams actually can come back. Because right now, like if you have to onside kick, you're more likely to have the other team Micah hide it and return it for a touchdown the other way than you are of actually recovering it.
Yeah, that one has actually been talked about, and that one I would absolutely love. I think it would make the game more exciting. Obviously, you don't want it to be like a 4th and 5, or else that's going to be way too easy. But, you still want it to be a challenge. But, yeah, that one, maybe down the road, maybe after this year, because that one I have seen talked about a lot more and more. Maybe a team does initiate that kind of a little bit more. The only thing I would say, I guess now thinking about it, I wish they would maybe put a little bit more emphasis on helping the defense. I'm not sure in what way, but just, we've seen rule after rule after rule over the past few years become so much towards the offense that I kind of wish they would bring a rule in for the defense. Obviously, it's a little tough because of just the physicality of football. What type of rule do you even put in? So, I mean, that would be the only thing I'd want them to maybe talk about is how can they make the game easier for the defense? Because you've seen defenders time after time after time come along and say, well, there's so many rules against me, I don't even know how to play the game right now. So other than, like you said, with the onside kick being replaced, I would love that rule. I would maybe want to see them kind of talk a little bit more about kind of helping the defense out in some way.
Yeah, I like the, leaning towards offense, scoring points a little bit. It's kind of weird because I feel like, and I was going to bring this up a little bit with the hip drop tackle, but we kind of moved on, but it's a good point now. People are so used to just trying to like hit somebody with a shoulder and knock them over, and like maybe it just brings a little bit more awareness back to like actually wrapping up and trying to like get in front of somebody, get the right angle. Your coach has always told you in football to try to get the angle so that your head can be in front of the runner and then drive him to the ground, with a form tackle. And just nowadays the game's played so fast, it's just tough for defenders in all to even try to get a hold of anyone. So a lot of times you see, a shoulder or someone trying to just lean into somebody to knock them off balance because these guys are moving so fast that one little hit, can tend to knock them off kilter and maybe go down. There's obviously plenty of strong runners that you can't do that to, and that's going to benefit them with this rule change. So I think it'll be interesting to see how the rule changes do benefit. I think it's going to benefit the offense a ton still. I think that's as much as safety is the goal here. I think that scoring is as well. And I think for new rules, I wouldn't hate your suggestion there with just replacing the onside overall. And I don't have any, I'm not like diving into rules saying, oh, this has got to change to something else. I have seen plenty of different. One opinion that I saw that was interesting was like a season pool of timeouts that you get for the season, and I thought that was kind of an interesting concept. If you kind of take like 6 per game or something and spread it for 17 games, and you get that many timeouts per season, and it's just in one pool, use them as you wish. How that would affect the teams that obviously can be leading and maybe can avoid using them in a lot of games, might have some stacked up for the end of the year. I think that'd be kind of fun, but that's more of like an arcade video game type of rule change, not necessarily like something I would want to see implemented in real life necessarily.
Yeah. Before we move on from this topic, I did actually have one rule that just came to mind is the timing obviously in college football is different than in football when it comes to the continuous clock. After first downs in the NFL or in college football, the clock stops. Right?
It doesn't do that anymore. Now it's only under 2 minutes.
Oh, okay. Well, even then, would you like a rule maybe like that added to the NFL where under 2 minutes, if you get a first down, clock can stop until you get set again?
I wouldn't dislike it, but I think that's one of the things that makes the NFL game different than the college game, that it's like harder. for one of those reasons. Like, you don't get the free chain gang timeouts. So I personally wouldn't like to see that come to the NFL, just because I think, 2-minute drives in the NFL are harder, and they're supposed to be, see NFL versus college.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you there. I don't think I'd hate it, but I don't think I'd necessarily love it. But it'd be interesting to see how the NFL adapts to that type of rule. But yeah, it might be too easy for NFL offenses. Just say, okay, well, if I get a first down, it might be way easier to make those 2-minute warnings than in college. So
yeah, I'm kind of indifferent. I like the game either way. I wouldn't hate it, and I wouldn't mind it being implemented too if it creates more competitive football. That's all I'm after.
I think I might actually like it better if they swapped it, where before 2 minutes they did that. After 2 minutes, continuous clock to kind of make it more intense towards the end. But either way, yeah, like Lance said, how the game is right now, it's fine. But just thought I'd get your thoughts on that one.
Cool. Well, I think we've talked about enough new rules for everybody's sake. So I'm going to toss it over to Ben in his 1-minute segment.
All right. So this week, I know last week I talked a little bit about the Sabres bringing it, with the draft, and kind of that affected my 1 minute. This week, same type of kind of question this week, except just a little bit different. So, this past week, again, Sabres did really do a lot. A lot of people were upset with what they've done. They didn't really go out and get a big fish, even though they had a lot of money, which kind of just got people thinking, got me thinking. Saw some people throwing it out there. And it's been a topic that I feel like people have been talking for a while of, did Terry Pegula, obviously owner of both the Sabres and the Bills, did he get lucky with the McDermott and Bean hire? For me, it kind of seems that way, right? Just seeing how the Sabres have been run the past 10 plus years with him, and just seeing how even the Bills were ran before they got here with McDermott and Bean, and just without them, where would this team be right now? So I would say yes. I would say slightly yes. Obviously, it's never going to have a definitive answer, but I'd like to see what you guys think. Terry Pegula saved the Bills from moving. He obviously kept them here. Sabres, he's kept them here. He wants them to be here. He loves the teams. But do you think that he's holding back, maybe these franchises, and did get lucky with Bean and McDermott? So I'm going to say yes, but slightly, not too much. But let me know what you guys think down below in the comments, and let us know.
Yeah, good stuff. I think definitely there's always luck in this kind of thing. Bean and McDermott, were targeted hires, I think. And I think Bean more so got some luck in hammering home on a 7th-round pick that be turned into a franchise quarterback. And that's usually, once you have a franchise quarterback, you're able to do a lot more things and have a lot more success. And they've been able, the Pegulas have put a lot of their money where their mouth was in the Bills organization, and have gone for it with different moves, the Stefon Diggs move and the Von Miller signing and all these things. So they've definitely put their chips in the middle of the table to try to get a Super Bowl here to Buffalo. You can never say that they didn't try to win right away. And, this year is kind of like evidence of okay, well, they went all in, and now they kind of got to roll it back a little bit. There's not necessarily top tier players all over the place. There's a lot of rotational or role players that are going to have to fill roles and be really good together, rather than just an individual being a superstar. And so I think there's always luck into it, and Pegula is definitely lucky that to have Bean and McDermott. Some people may not agree that we're lucky to have McDermott. I do. I think that he's been more than a fine coach here, and he's his first head coaching gig, so he's made some mistakes that obviously cost us in big moments, which is unfortunate, because we probably could or should potentially have 2 Super Bowls here with this group of players. But maybe some coaching and things like that have cost us some things. But I do think just any organization has to fall into some luck, and it all starts around getting that top tier franchise quarterback as well.
Yeah, it's wild to think back that 3 of the finalists to buy the Bills were the Pegulas, Donald Trump, and John Bon Jovi. Like, just what a list of people, and we lucked out that it was the Pagulas who bought them, I would say, because they for sure kept them in Buffalo. But yeah, similar to what Lance said, I think they lucked out more with hitting on Josh Allen, because if Josh Allen didn't work out, Bean and McDermott wouldn't be here anymore. So yeah, I think it's that quarterback that they really lucked out on. Obviously, luck has something to do with it, but they did their homework on that. So yeah, I don't know if they lucked in with Bean and McDermott, because I think that just worked out perfectly. McDermott was kind of like the exact coach that we needed to turn the team around, get that like toughness mentality, even before Josh Allen got there. And then Big Baller Bean has been great. So I think the whole combination has really worked out just about as well as it could. Obviously, the Super Bowl would make it better, but yeah, I think hitting on that quarterback is really what's kept this group together for as long as it's been.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, sports is about you get lucky, whether it's having one play go your way or having multiple plays go your way, or even just one draft pick go your way, or whatever it is. So yeah, sports is all about getting lucky, no matter what. Even the Chiefs, think about it. Maybe if the Bears picked Mahomes number 1, they got lucky. He fell to 11, right? So it's all about luck, and sometimes luck can play more of a factor.
They actually,
but that kind of does bring me
the Bills for Mahomes, right?
Yeah,
so
they did.
They went after and targeted him. So that's a little more. That's goes to hats off to those guys who made a target, just like the Bills targeted Josh Allen, moved up and got their guy. So it is lucky that they turned out that way, but it's also like, man, they targeted the guy they thought they could really win with, and turns out sometimes you're right, and that's really awesome.
Yeah. So luck's all about it's in sports all over, whether it's a referee making a call, whether it's a pick, whether it's a play, whether it's whatever it is, right? Or a hiring, luck does come into play. And I do think, we always will be thankful for Terry Pegula for keeping the Bills here, and, the Sabres as well. But I did think he got a little bit lucky with the McDermott and Bean, and like Scott said, them bringing in Josh Allen, getting a little bit lucky there as well. So hopefully they can get a little bit lucky this year in a couple games and get bounces going our way, especially in the playoffs. But that kind of does bring me to my next topic. We were talking about Josh Allen, the Josh Allen era, right? The Josh Allen era. It's kind of crazy to think it's already been, this amount of years, and it's been we're going into year 8, I believe now, of Josh Allen. It's kind of crazy to think about, right? Or is it year 8 or is it year 7?
I think 7.
7, yes, year 7. But it's kind of crazy to think about, right? It's crazy to think that he's already been here for this long, and we've seen these many seasons of him, and we've been through so much with him at the helm so far. So I just kind of want to get your thoughts on the Allen era. You guys can obviously let us know in the comments here what you guys are thinking. I'm going to be curious to see how you guys react to some of these questions. So I'm just going to start it off with a real kind of easy one of what was Josh Allen's best year? And this kind of goes into the next one as well, which I'll just kind of give you guys as well, what also was the Bills' best year with Josh Allen? So what do you think? We'll start with you, Scott. Scott, what do you think the best year of Josh Allen was and the best year of the Bills was?
Well, hopefully it's next year. But I would say I think Josh Allen's best year was 2020. And I think part of that might be where, not to say it came out of nowhere, but I think the level at which he played and the Bills going 13-3 just caught a lot of people by surprise. Because 2019, they were an okay team. Like, they made the playoffs. They were a questionable call away from maybe beating Houston. In overtime there, they had a 16-0 lead, which you don't have to get into. But, like, they were, like, a team that, they played hard on defense. Josh Allen took care of the ball a little bit, made a couple throws here and there that you're like, okay, like, I see what we're seeing. He was running. We had Frank Gore, rookie Motor Singletary. Like, we had a good running game, and it was kind of like we won with kind of like a ground and pound defensive mentality. Flip it over to 2020, and we're winning because Josh Allen's throwing for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns in week 2 against the Dolphins. And it's like, wow, like, there was the big debate of, like, is it a problem he hasn't thrown for 300 yards yet? And then he did it in week 1 against the Jets, threw for 400 in week 2 against the Dolphins, and he kind of never stopped. And his interception numbers were pretty down. Like, he didn't throw a pick until that Rams game in week 4 where Tyler Kroft caught the ball, but then somehow the Rams guy came out with it and it was an interception. So I think 2020 was his best year, and I think that's where he set most of his career highs as well. But just, like, that team was just so much fun to watch all year long. Like, their losses, you can still remember, like, the Hail Murray game, which was, like, such a fluke. I think that was Josh Allen's best year, and I think that maybe just because, like I said, it kind of wasn't expected. We thought he would take a jump, but we didn't think he would go from like middle-of-the-road quarterback to the top 2 or 3 guy that he is now. But I think the Bills' best team with Josh Allen was 2021. I know they kind of had like a slow middle part to the season, but they got red hot at the end. They had the perfect game against the Patriots, that Chiefs game, which, to this day I'm still not over. And you can't convince me that if some of the coaching things we talked about, they just play out those last 13 seconds differently, that team doesn't win the Super Bowl. So I think 2020, Josh Allen's best season individually, but 2021, I think, is the best team that the Bills had with Josh. I think that was the year for them for sure.
Yeah, I'm going to say 2021 was Josh Allen's best year and the Bills' best year, and here's why. Josh Allen ran for almost 900 yards in 2021, only 566 in 2020. He did have more touchdowns, 9 in 2020 than he did in 2021 with 6. Overall, he had the same number of touchdowns passing and rushing combined in both years, and he had less fumbles. Now, he did have a couple more interceptions in 2021. Obviously, his best ratio was 2020. His passing yards were a little bit higher in 2020, but overall, just the player, that team in 2021 was so good because of him, and I just feel like his best year was just 2021. That whole team just had everything going for him. Like you mentioned, the perfect game against New England. And then, I'm like checking my bank account. I've got enough money for the AFC Championship game tickets to hit. I'm ready to go. I said, all right, we're hosting the AFC Championship game in Buffalo. There's only 13 seconds left. My stomach was just a mess. And obviously we know what happened. So, I agree. The Bills' best season, 100% was 2021, and I'm going to say that was also Josh Allen's best year. Although there were some statistics that will say a few more yards here and whatnot, but also overall, I think with his running game and really took off in 2021 with the nearly 900 yards rushing and less fumbles. So just as a whole. I think he graded out in PFF's grading system anyway. A little bit better in 2021 as well. So, I think 2021 for me is going to be the better year. And it's like the year that's the one that got away, right? That's like, man, we don't know necessarily because we also, in 2020 lost in the AFC Championship game itself. So that's kind of, but those 2 years, man, coming out with 0 Super Bowls is really tough to swallow because you just think you could have had 2 there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to agree with Scott on this one when it comes to both, but I do want to just bring up a little bit. I do think 2022, though, was the best team on paper. On paper, to start week 1, that was the best team, but then you had Von Miller go down in the middle of the season. You had Troy White still not the same, right? And that just was also then the DeMar Hamlin year. It was a tough mental year for this team. So I think if that team stays healthy, doesn't have to go through as much as it did throughout the entire season, it had Dawson Knox, his brother Pat, it was just such an emotional team. I think if they stay healthy and it's kind of one of those seasons that they don't have to deal with as much, I think maybe they're physically and mentally more prepared for the playoffs and more prepared for that Bengals game. Obviously, it didn't go well in that playoff game at all. But that team, I think, on paper, might have been the best Bills team. When it comes to, though, the best season they had, obviously regular season, I think, was 2020. But when you look at, like Scott said, the transition after that, they struggled there, and just how they went into the playoffs, man, that team was on a mission, and it was, like we said, 13 seconds away from being able to get to that AFC Championship game. And I think a lot of people in the NFL and a lot of Bills fans thought that they were not going to be stopped unless by Kansas City. And obviously they were, unfortunately. But so I'm going to agree with the overall sentiment of 2020 was Josh Allen's best season. Bills' best season was 2021. But I think the Bills' best team was 2022 on paper if they would have stayed healthy. Von Miller was coming out looking great. The defense looked like they were going to be able to get after the quarterback. Josh Allen looked really good. Just everything looked very good there, but we knew how that season went, and it was just an overall tough season. So I guess maybe that's my next question to you guys is, is if 2021, if they don't have to deal with as much, would that team maybe be that team that we look back at and say, man, that was the one that got away maybe just as much as 2021 did?
Yeah, that team was just like, it started from even like the beginning. Like Jamison Crowder got hurt in like week 6, and he was supposed to be, that slot receiver that was going to come in and be the Emmanuel Sanders from the year before. And that didn't really work out. And then like that team, like it was just such like a weird year, because like there would be games, like I think of like the Browns game, they had to go play in Detroit. Like they were playing home games, not even home because of the snow. They're dealing with that. Like they would just look flat like every week, but somehow they would still win. And it's like, and then it's all started to like the injuries piled up. Like you said, Vaughn got hurt, and then obviously everything that happened with DeMar, which I think just like took all of the wind out of whatever sails they had. And that team was just emotionally exhausted. Like,
was that also the year of the Matt Ariza situation as well?
Yeah. Yep, the year started with that. So like the whole year, it was just like one thing after another. And like I remember like hearing some quotes from guys in the locker room of like they were just hoping to make the Super Bowl so they could get a week off, like they could get a bye and get fresh again. So yeah, that's definitely a season that you look back on and think of what could have been, just because like the cliche of like everything that could go wrong will, but like at an astronomical level, because they had things happening that like don't happen to NFL teams. It wasn't just injuries. It was like the way guys, and obviously the Mar Hamlin stuff, which is like never happened before. It hopefully never happens again, knock on wood. But yeah, definitely one that got away, and just everything that team went through, and still to go 13-3. And like, and they got maybe like screwed out of getting the 1 seed because they didn't play that game in Cincinnati. If they beat the Bengals in the playoffs, we would all had to go to Atlanta to watch them play the Chiefs. And it's like, this game should be in Buffalo. Like, it's not our fault we lost the game. But yeah, that was just a really weird year. Definitely one that, we'll look back on and be like, damn, that happened that year too. Like, it's amazing they did as well as they did.
Got any thoughts on that one, Lance, at all about the 2022 season, or should we move on to the next question here?
Yeah, for 2022, that was obviously very difficult. It's hard to really, for me, I don't really look at it and subscribe. Like, you got to roll with the punches. You got to have, like, every team has injuries. If you put every team at full strength and no injuries, like, sure, they're going to think they have the best shot at it that they would have in their franchise. And that's happened, throughout history. I'm not disagreeing that, that's not true. It absolutely. It's just that you could really say that for every team. Literally, if every team stays 100% healthy and doesn't lose a guy, they're going to be a lot more competitive than they were. So it's tough to say that, just because it's so true for really every franchise. They've had a number of years where if anybody goes down there, the Patriots could have had an extra Super Bowl probably because Brady gets hurt, and stuff like that. So it's hard to really say, like, if we didn't go through, it's just, that's part of the NFL season's injury. You have to get, again, it's a lot about luck, because you have to have lucky, luck with the guys that you have in your locker room clicking. And then you also have to have luck with injuries and have enough attrition on your team to get there at the end.
Yeah. Well, that kind of does bring me into like my next question. Is we're talking about what the Bills didn't have that year. We know what the Bills are missing this year compared to past years, right? But I kind of want to switch that question. Do you think that the Bills this year have something that the other years didn't have? Maybe that might benefit them this year that they do have, that they might not have had. So we'll start with you, Lance. Do you think the Bills this year have something that the other past Bills teams didn't have?
I'm not sure. I know they don't have the things that they used to with a star number 1 wide receiver, and that what they still have is an incredible quarterback in Josh Allen, and they have a more seasoned Sean McDermott head coach with some more fiery, younger coordinators underneath him. So they do have a little bit more, or a lot more, youth really in this building, from the staff and player side of things, and we'll see if it can be more of the death by 1,000 paper cuts type of approach here with this team versus, we know we can beat you because we've got Josh Allen and Stefon Diggs, which is, 2020 and 2021 were so successful, I believe, because, you brought in Diggs, that monumental move to bring in Stefon Diggs. It just allows you to be better than everyone at any certain time that you want to, and kind of flex that muscle, so to speak. And now it's like you don't have that cheat code necessarily. You have still Josh Allen with his legs, which is a cheat code in and of itself, but you don't have that necessarily one guy that's like game changer. When it counts, like it's him and that's it. And so we're gonna develop that, and we're gonna see another turnover of this roster, obviously, and see how competitive and successful we can be this year. I don't think that we have necessarily any one thing that other teams wouldn't. I think we, other than, the culture of Sean McDermott with these younger coordinators coming in with that energy, but I think a lot of teams have something similar. So it's going to be even more reliant upon having Josh Allen, and Josh Allen being that great player, that all-time great player, cementing himself and his legacy this year is going to be something that other teams won't have.
Yeah, I think this year's team has maybe something different years past, and that's just like something to prove. Like a team that's hungry. Like teams from years past, like all of the stuff leading into the season was how the Bills are the Super Bowl favorites and how good everybody is. And they have Stefon Diggs and Josh Allen and blah, blah, blah. And like, I think Nick Saban calls it like eating the cheese or something like that. Like if you watch national media, which if you want actual sports takes, you shouldn't. But all they're saying is just that the Bills aren't going to be good. There was a graphic the other day of like, who would you pick to start your team after if like it wasn't Pat Mahomes, and no one picked Josh Allen. Like I didn't realize Josh Allen retired. I guess I missed that. But like we got Matt Milano coming back from injury, trying to show he's still an all-pro. Von Miller coming back from injury, showing that last year wasn't who he is. Josh Allen saying, I don't need Stefon Diggs. Stefon Diggs did not make me. If anything, it's the other way around. Receivers looking to step up. Khalil Shakir, I'm a number one, or a top slot receiver, whatever you want to be. Curtis Samuel, been on bad teams, put up numbers on a bad team, but come in showing like, I can be a number one option or a number two option, or put up big numbers on a Super Bowl contender. Dalton Kincaid, I'm going to be one of the top tight ends in the league. A new faces on the offensive line, a new center. Deion Dawkins just got a contract showing that he's worth it. Like I'm excited about this team because I think they're going to have that chip on their shoulder. Like no one believes in us outside of the guys in this room, and that's all that matters. So really excited to see what they do with that mentality. And Josh Allen seems to be the kind of guy who thrives under that kind of mentality. So hoping the team comes out hungrier than teams in years past, because a lot of people outside of Buffalo don't necessarily believe in them this year.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with both of you guys. Love that. I have two more questions for you, though. The first one being, besides Josh Allen, we talked about having the turnover this year, right? With, Mitch Morse leaving, you have Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer not being there this year, Stefon Diggs not being there this year, but there still are a lot of guys that have been here for a while. Matt Milano has been here, Ed Oliver's been here for a while, Sean McDermott, Brandon Beane. So, a little turnover, but still a lot of other guys. But besides Josh Allen, who is the most important player during his tenure as a Buffalo Bill? This time we'll start with Scott here. Who do you think has been the most important over these past few years?
Well, I kind of just talked about him a little bit, maybe like he wasn't, but I think it's Stefon Diggs. He came in after the 2019 season and helped take that big jump. He was that number one alpha receiver that I think he needed. He's at a point in his career now where hopefully he doesn't, and we can kind of spread the wealth like we've talked about. But I think Josh Allen would still be a great quarterback if Stefon Diggs never came, but I think he kind of like skyrocketed his development just based on having that guy that he knew was going to be there. So I think, it's kind of like the Ninja Turtles meme, where it's like baby Josh Allen. And hopefully now it's like Josh Allen is the the guy in the middle, I don't watch it. And then there's the other receivers on the outside helping him. But I think Josh Allen is at the ready point to take that next step. But yeah, it has to be Stefon Diggs. He came in and immediately the offense changed. Like we came more pass heavy. Josh's numbers went up. Everything went great. So hopefully, like I say, he's at the point where he doesn't need that anymore. But yeah, I think it has to be Diggs.
I agree 100%. And I, couldn't think of anybody else that would even come close to touching that. I just, all the reasons you suggested. And like I said, it gave you that one guy. You had, if nobody else, you had Allen and Diggs, and that would be better than what the other team had. And you could rely on that week in and week out and be able to, just take over games with things. And you saw it in a lot of the Miami games, especially most recent one, I believe, just a quick hitch route to Diggs on the outside. I'm not sure if this was this year or last year, but this past season or 2 seasons ago now, I guess it's all blending together, but he breaks that tackle away and, ends up scoring a touchdown on that, what was a 10-yard hitch route basically. And there was no, not really designed to score a touchdown, but that's kind of the specialty of Stefon Diggs. And, those are the kind of plays. And then Allen obviously has that game breaker ability as well. Like I mentioned, nearly 900 yards in 2021. So when you have to worry about the quarterback scrambling and Stefon Diggs, that just opened everything up for guys. And Emmanuel Sanders and all these other guys were able to really be effective here. We saw John Brown, those kind of guys. Cole Beasley was good. And now with Dalton Kincaid here, we're going to have a little bit of a change where it's not necessarily going to be that outside matchup or that receiver matchup that we can really take advantage of every week. I think it's going to be more of that inside matchup and saying, okay, we've got a better tight end and being more along the lines of the Mahomes-Kelsey relationship and things like that for this team. But no doubt in my mind, Stefon Diggs was the most important player during the Josh Allen era. The biggest thing Scott mentioned was the trajectory just changed from a nice even to kind of just a skyrocket up. So the trajectory of Allen's development and career just was so aided by Stefon Diggs. It's hard not to say that he's the most important outside of Allen.
Yeah, I mean, I think when it comes to who was the most important for Allen, I would agree that it was Stefon Diggs. When it comes to during the Josh Allen era, I'm actually going to go with, I'm kind of in between about 4 guys right now. Brandon Beane, Sean McDermott, we did talk about them. They're obviously just as super important as well. Lance, you just named a bunch of guys that, that Brandon Beane brought in with John Brown and Cole Beasley and these guys that did help. Obviously, Stefon Diggs was the biggest name out of them. The only other 2 that I honestly thought about was Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer. Having guys that are able to come in, help change this culture, help challenge Josh Allen on the other side of the ball and practice every day, saying, hey, we're giving you nothing easy. You're playing against 2 top-notch, top-tier safeties in the league. You're going to have to beat us in practice so that you can then be better in the game. So outside of Stefon Diggs, I would say those 4 would be the ones that were right there with him for me that are, I can't really decide on. Sean McDermott, obviously great coach for this team so far during his career, will help this team break the drought. Been a guy that's helped, kind of change the culture here. Brandon Beane being able to replace guys, maybe not even just with first round picks, but with 5th, 6th, 7th round picks as well. But if I had to go player outside of Stefon Diggs, I would go that Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde route, because they were the leaders of this defense and the leaders of this team in general to help kind of push Allen and say, hey, we're going to make Diggs better. We're going to make you better. We're going to make this offense better, but we're not going to make it easy for you. So, it's kind of all those 5, I guess, are all up there for me. I don't know if I'd have one specific. I guess I would kind of go with just those 5 in general. All are equally up there. When it comes to Allen's trajectory, Diggs, I do agree with you guys, though. He's the one that really helped him skyrocket there. But when it came to the Allen era in general, I think those guys maybe a little bit more than Diggs, just because they were there longer than Diggs, so that might give them the upper hand. But I mean, there's so many guys that you could say here for this answer. But yeah, I'm gonna go with them, I guess, is a big answer of just not one specific.
The only reason I really couldn't take defensive guy mostly is because like Allen left the field so many times with putting his team in a position to win games, and it was the defense that really kind of cost the Bills a lot of those big things, or coaching. So McDermott, as important as he is, and those defenders, Hyde and Poyer, especially Trey White, as important as all those guys were to the foundation of this team, that side of the ball kind of was the issue when you talk about what went wrong in some of these big games. And besides the Bengals game was obviously terrible all the way around. Everybody had the worst game of their career, apparently, all in one game. And otherwise, it was so tough because those guys were such staples on the Bills roster, but when it came crunch time and time to where they needed it to really keep their season alive, that side of the ball wasn't able to get it done, and that just kind of I guess that hurt, and that kind of thing kind of makes me think that the offense was really the important part of Josh Allen's greatness. Obviously, he plays offense, but that's what makes me think the most important players for this team during the era was really the offensive guy.
Yeah. I mean, I do have one more last question about Josh Allen for you before we get into your segment there. So really easy one. I mean, it might not even be easy. There's so many answers you could go with for this next one. But we've had so many moments over these past few years that we're gonna look back and say, wow, we were blessed as a fan base to be able to do this, right? A guy that is so special as a player. So what to you guys is Josh Allen's favorite moment? Scott, we'll start with you on this one. What is your favorite Josh Allen moment since he's gotten to the Buffalo Bills?
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit earlier with best team, best run. But for me, it's that 2021 playoff run. The perfect game. I think he threw for 5 touchdowns. He threw on the Tommy Doyle. We scored every time we touched the ball. That game was just so much fun. And then the last 2 minutes of the Chiefs game, I know the last 13 seconds were incredibly painful, but those 2 drives that he had and the 4th downs that he picked up with his legs, where he would run about 15 yards backwards, make Chris Jones miss, and then get up the field and then find Emmanuel Sanders on the sideline, or he found Diggs in the end zone, that two-point conversion. Those drives were just it's the one where your heart is going 180 beats a minute and your Apple Watch tells you you need to chill out. But they scored on both of them, and it was just I don't know if I've ever seen a quarterback play better than that, under those situations. And I don't know if I'd ever been happier than when he hit Gabe Davis on that touchdown with 13 seconds left, and to the point where I was celebrating so much I didn't even necessarily notice that the Chiefs drove down the field until I did. But it just how well he played, and the 4th downs he was picking up with his legs, with his arm. It was just he was a man possessed. And I hope we get that Josh Allen again come this playoff run, because we might need him. But I know that game didn't end the way we wanted to, but I don't know if I've ever seen a player play better than he did in those last 2 minutes.
Yeah, I was getting a little bit more specific with that throw to Gabe Davis there to go up. Just that emotion was incredible, I think. But just to pick maybe a more recent moment that was also great, I still can't get that throw to Shakir in the end zone. I believe it was in the Pittsburgh game last playoffs there. Just that throw was so incredible. And Shakir made a great catch as well. So that moment has stuck with me since it happened, and I keep thinking about it. And so the Bills necessarily didn't have a hold on the game or whatever, but that really cemented okay, we're going to win this game. And a 17-yard throw to his left side while he's rolling left, so he's kind of throwing just awkwardly and things, and just lasers it just over the pylon there, and Shakir gets his knees and feet down and is able to make a great catch. So that moment for me was most recently, but overall, I think that touchdown pass to Gabe Davis to go up in that Chiefs game was incredible. Just the emotion I think that evoked from everyone. probably is a highlight for a lot of folks in their lifetime.
Yeah, I think you guys nailed it with that one. So I'm gonna go a little bit differently. I'm gonna go with, I got two plays, I guess. The one from a long time ago that you kind of showed his arm, like, wow, this guy is gonna make throws that we're gonna be in awe of, was the throw to Robert Foster, I believe it was, against the Jags. As I don't know if you guys can now hear. Now my neighbors are now doing fireworks outside.
Not bad.
So so that one to me, and then the other one is against Dallas Thanksgiving, that fourth down when he picked the ball up. That play will forever be just the emotion on his face that you saw as well, just really stood out. But there's so many you can choose from, right? Even last year, the Pittsburgh playoff game, the Pats perfect game, he was unbelievable. I mean, just so many plays. So that's one curious. I'm curious about you guys in the comments there. Let us know for sure. I'm going to be reading them back to see which, if anybody can think of plays that maybe we're forgetting about, that everybody's like, oh, that play really is up there. Obviously there's the hurdles as well. Scott, I know you got one thing real quick. So yeah, what do you got?
I have an honorable mention that I forgot about. The Houston game when he caught the touchdown on the first drive and then did the John Brown dance. That was incredible.
Even the run before that too, the long run before that in that drive.
Yeah. Oh, yep. Yeah, they ran the QB sweep to the right, and he took it for like 48 yards. It was our longest run of the year. And then the very next play, he caught it. I was at that game in Houston. It was funny. At the tailgate, my buddy I was with was like, "Today's going to be weird. Like, Josh is going to catch a touchdown or something." And then sure enough, the fifth play of the game, we were like, "Oh my God, you called it!" That was incredible. That was an honorable mention for me.
There's too many. I know. I'm curious though. I'd love it. I really want to see what you guys have down below. So really let us know what you guys think about Josh Allen, your favorite moments, game, whatever it is, or even the moment that you knew that Josh Allen was the guy when that play was. Let us know. So, but that's going to do it for the Josh Allen era. And before we kind of finish it up here, Lance does have his 1 minute segment left. So I'll pass it over to Lance here for your 1 minute.
All right. Yeah. Thanks, guys. My 1 minute this week is going to be basically maybe poking the bear a little bit, but I want to just get, feedback from fans, season ticket holders, things like that. I'm a season ticket holder myself, and just want to get the thoughts on, the training camp ticketing process. It's so weird to me that Bill's training camp sold out in like 2 hours for a lot of the practices, and that's just so crazy that a practice gets that much fan excitement and engagement. That's great for this franchise. Obviously, when you have Josh Allen's big ticket item, everyone wants to go see him any chance they get. So season ticket holders get 6 per account, and then there's a lottery for non-season ticket holders for upcoming training camp, which starts July 24th. Let me know what you think about that ticketing process, how they let people in. Hopefully this year makes it a little more comfortable, because the bleachers were packed full, and maybe they're trying to make it more enjoyable for each one of the folks who do get to go for each training camp practice. So let me know what you guys think.
I mean, I personally like how they do it, at least with the season ticket holders. It's kind of like a, hey, thank you to the season ticket holders as well. Might be a little bit biased because I am a season ticket holder. Some non-season ticket holders might have other opinions on it, which I would understand. But I mean, I personally like it. I think definitely last year was an issue. A lot of people were very upset with how it was handled last year. Now with the lottery, that I'll have to see. I kind of want to see how it goes with that one, because I'm kind of curious to see how it goes. But overall, I think at least with the season ticket holders, now I'm not too sure if they gave the right amount of tickets. I think it should maybe go by how many seats you have, but not by a ton, right? Like if you have 10 seats, you shouldn't be able to just take 50 of the tickets, right? So I think there should be a maximum cap. But there should also be, like, if you only have 1 ticket, why should you get as many as somebody that has 6 tickets, right? That's a season ticket holder. So I like it a little bit better this year, but overall it's kind of something that you'll never have a perfect process for this, because it's not like you can give out 50, 60,000 tickets to this, right? You have a limited amount that you can give out.
Yeah, I'm a season ticket holder, but I live in Baltimore, so I don't usually make it up for training camp. So I don't necessarily feel the pain of some folks trying to get there. But my buddy who I have seasons with always goes to camp, and he says it's like a zoo. And hopefully, this makes getting tickets, at least for season ticket holders, a little bit easier. But yeah, I've never been to Bills training camp. I grew up close to Albany, so it's a lot of Giants training camp back in the day, but never been to a Bills training camp. So one day I'll make it up there.
Yeah, now it's going to be a little bit more difficult for me as my son gets older and he's 4 now, and I took him last year, and I, thanks to Kyrie Elam, was able to get the friends and family pass and be able to be in this section where Josh Allen came after practice, and he got his jersey signed by Josh, and like that's really cool. And I like that the players are really trying to make it more of an impetus on like let the kids get all these experiences, like the 40-year-old dudes that are out there trying to like fanboy on people is just kind of getting old. And no disrespect to anyone, you can fan however you'd like, but it's just a matter of like, okay, these events are just more for kids and things. And I think a lot more of that is being stressed and trying to be uh, the main focal point of some of these events so that the kids can have a good time, have the interactions, and you know the sport can kind of be what it is. It is a game at the end of the day, and it should be fun for everyone involved. So I like kind of what they're doing, and I'm interested to see, planning on taking my son this year and seeing hopefully that there's more and more to do, and more space for him to like be able to do something and not have to like cram him up on a bleacher or anything like that. So
Yeah, either way, training camp is unbelievable. It's fun to go to. If you can go, I highly suggest it. But yeah, just also I will say it's usually very hot there, so be prepared if you're going. I remember last year, Lance, when we went, it was like the hottest one of the entire camp, and it was brutal. So definitely be prepared for the heat once you get to that time.
absolutely. And thanks again for everyone tuning in. This was, again, pre recorded. Please don't forget to smash the like and share button still. Please subscribe to the Built in Buffalo YouTube. A lot of great things coming as we announced our partnership with Monster Energy and the official energy partner of Built in Buffalo. We're going to be doing some really cool things. I've got some things in the works that I've got to finalize before they're announced in full, but a lot of cool stuff coming around tailgates and things like that. So we'll be out there with a lot of Monster, both product and different swag items and things like that. I've got some cool ideas on how we can get you guys out there interacting with us, get you guys to win some prizes and things like that. So I'm hoping you guys like that. And my segment around what you like to do and the tailgating activity was kind of built around that to try to get and engage some of the fans and what's going on out in and around the stadium there pregame. So I know what I do, and obviously you guys have been a part of that last year, so appreciate it. I'm looking forward to another cool season this year around Built in Buffalo and around the Buffalo Bills. So with that, that'll do it for Benjamin Shoop. I'm Lance Nelson and Scott Kasson, and as always,